Hello YouTube, my name is Rachel Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. If you're new to my channel and have not yet subscribed, it would really make me happy if you subscribe right now. Thank you. I'm going to be discussing the effects of the upcoming eclipse in Capricorn. It's going to happen on the 4th or the 5th of July, depending on your location. This eclipse is a penumbral lunar eclipse. This means that it's a partial lunar eclipse. It's happening at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Coincidentally, this is also America's birthday. So all the energy we'll be experiencing during this lunar eclipse is going to be present with America for the rest of the solar year. Even though this eclipse is a partial lunar eclipse, it's important in that this is the last eclipse in the Cancer-Capricorn axis. This Capricorn eclipse closes this window for another 18.5 years. Essentially, we are all going to be concluding something in the Capricorn house. This is a partial lunar eclipse simply because the nodes are far off. They are in another sign, in the sign of Sagittarius. The nodes are at 29 degrees. This is what makes this a partial lunar eclipse because of the distance between the moon and the node. Something always comes to a culmination or an ending with a south node lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses tend to affect the women in our lives. The last time there was an eclipse at 13 degrees Capricorn was in July 2001. Can you remember what was happening in your life in July 2001? It's not going to be exactly the same thing simply because the outer planets are in different houses at this time. Look to see where you have 13 degrees Capricorn. That is a house that's going to be affected. So the themes of that house are what are going to be repeated in some sort of a way. Of course, the elephant in the room is that in 2001, a few months after this eclipse, we had 9/11. I just hope that we're not so blinded by the pandemic and the economy that we have some loopholes where we could face another attack. I'm hoping that the attack was the pandemic itself. Focus in astrology is to focus on the individual, how astrology affects us personally. I try not to venture into the world events, but if you have to consider when these eclipses happened and what followed after, it's very difficult to just sit back and ignore it. So let's recap on the summer eclipses. The first eclipse we had this summer was in Sagittarius. It was also a penumbral eclipse, another partial eclipse, but we all witnessed just how powerful that eclipse was. This eclipse highlighted our ninth house themes. Ninth house themes are our justice system, religion, foreign lands, and our higher ideals and beliefs. Moon in astrology always represents the people. Sagittarius is ruled by the element of fire. As we all saw, this resulted in little fires everywhere. If we have to be honest with ourselves, most people's ideals and beliefs and bigotry changed at this time. The inequality among the races cannot be ignored any longer. The Cancer solar eclipse, which happened 2 weeks ago, was the most powerful eclipse of the year. What made it so powerful is the fact that it was only a degree away from the nodes. It happened on solstice, and it was at a critical degree of 0 degrees. This eclipse highlighted our fourth house themes. This centers on our home, our homeland, our mother, our ancestors, and our deep emotions. Cancer is a water sign, therefore that means it deals with our emotions. For some people, there must have been water everywhere in the form of tears. Most of us went deep down into our emotions, or some resentments and uncomfortable feelings may have resurfaced, as this is the area we are most vulnerable. We also saw some politicians speaking their truth by opposing the president on some of his views and actions. Most politicians sided with the people who were expressing their angst that slave owners are still being revered in this country. Statues of slave owners are still standing and the Confederate flags are still flying. It's very clear that most people in this country want these remnants out of our society because they represent hate and slavery. So on a personal level, what emotions resurfaced for you? What emotions do you have to finally deal with? What emotions can you no longer suppress? What is it exactly that you want your family unit to look like? If you hadn't felt any immediate effects from the eclipse, it's very likely that you had an event when Mars entered his home sign of Aries. This happened on the 28th of June. When Mars entered Aries, he immediately triggered the Cancer solar eclipse. He triggered this point through the aspect of a square. An aspect of a square will definitely bring some action. The next 6 months are going to have some very challenging spots, and the area where to take action or initiate things is supported in your Aries house. So if you haven't yet watched the video I did on Mars entering Aries, you should go and watch that now. I give the exact dates that you have to watch out for. At this time, I'm going to ask you to go to astro.com to get your free natal birth chart, so that you can know your ascendant, locate the house of Capricorn, because this is where this eclipse is happening. In order for us to truly understand how this eclipse is going to affect us individually, we have to understand Saturn, the ruler of the eclipse. And we have to also acknowledge that it's a south node eclipse. So we are definitely going to have to do some letting go, and there will certainly be some endings. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon rules the people. So there's an opposition going on here between the houses. Saturn opposite the moon is a depressive aspect. It's very likely you feel very unhappy, and you may want to hold on to the structures that are going to structures that are crumbling in your life. But let's face it, these are things that you've been trying to fix and hold together for at least 2.5 years. And if we have to take it back into Saturn cycles, it could be for the last 7 years. It could be for the last 14 years. And for some, it could be for the last 29 years. And then if we have to go on the level of karma, it could be something from a past lifetime. You can no longer dwell in the south node. This is time to let go of old structures. Let them crumble. Let them fall. You will be able to rebuild again. Saturn is transiting his own sign, a south node lunar eclipse in his own sign. He wants to bring things to a conclusion so that they can be replaced with something solid that could last you, according to Saturn cycles, 7 years, 14 years, 29 years, or a lifetime. So it's not going to feel good to lose these things that we've been holding on, believing in for so many years. This destruction is inevitable. Saturn is supporting it, and he's going to make it happen, whether you want to or not. It's time to let go and move into the future. Saturn is probably going to give you a wonderful gift at the end of his transit. This is one of his own houses. Not going to totally destroy it. He's only removing the walls or the structures that are no longer supporting you on the journey that you must travel at this time. And if you use Saturn's energy wisely, this is the time that you can actually rebuild solid structures that are going to last you for a very long time to come. Because when Saturn leaves Capricorn, he moves on to Aquarius, which is another sign he rules. Basically, we have over 5 years to build solid structures in our life. If you're new to my channel and have not yet subscribed, please do so now. Here is why you should subscribe to my channel. I talk about intimate issues that affect us as a society and as mankind. I also review herbal medicine and herbal therapies that one can use to heal the body or boost one's immune system. I usually review products that I've used myself, so you will be getting first-hand feedback. And yes, I am an astrologer. I bring you astrology in a simple way that you can understand and use it for your everyday guidance in your life. Also remember to ring the bell icon so that you may be notified whenever I upload a new video. So let's move on to our discussion. This eclipse is going to highlight our 10th house themes. The 10th house is a Capricorn house, naturally ruled by Saturn. 10th house themes are things like the government, what we do for work, our standing in society, government structures, authority figures. We could also include actual buildings and bridges or structures that have been around for many, many years. Traditions and customs that have been around for decades or centuries are also included here. This also includes old people in the government who have held down their positions for a very long time. Institutions like banks, colleges, and mortar and brick type of businesses. Statues are also old structures that have been around for many years. Flags are also symbols that have been around for many years. Older people in our life may pass away at this time. Solid structures or things in your life that have shown cracks or weakness and you've been trying to hold on to them will have to go at this time. It is a new day whether we like it or not. So on a personal level, if you've been having problems in your marriage for a while, this is the time when your partner might ask for a divorce. For some people, it could be a job situation that has to be let go at this time. And for others, it could be a living situation. It's always important to look at what the ruler of the eclipse has been up to. Saturn had traveled into the future. He went into his other home sign of Aquarius, which he co-rules with Uranus. Aquarius is the sign of the future technology, and it's also the sign of the people. Saturn is already retrograded back to his home sign Capricorn. He is at the critical degree of 29 degrees at the time of this eclipse. And the Aquarius house he has just returned from is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is now at 10 degrees in the house of Taurus. So Uranus is also going to be part of this eclipse. He's going to be trining both lights, the sun and the moon, and he's also going to sextile Mercury, he's also going to sextile Mercury in Cancer, who is now retrograde. All these aspects are supporting aspects, so they're going to make our transitions a lot smoother. So while Saturn was in Aquarius, he listened to the cries of the people. Uranus rules the future and represents the people. So now that Saturn is back in his home sign of Capricorn, he is going to stay there until the end of the year. The last time Saturn was transiting his house of Capricorn was in 1999. Can you remember what was happening in your life in 1999? Or can you remember what was happening in the world or in your country at that time? Did some structures or government systems collapse? Saturn is equipped with a list of demands from the future and a wrecking ball. This list includes names and numbers of people or structures that must go or be reconstructed before he leaves his house for another 29 years. Some astrologers believe that Saturn will leave you a gift when he finishes the work in the house that he's transiting, especially his own houses. We have 6 months to do the homework. Let go of whatever is no longer serving you because it's only holding you back. Overall, I think this is a positive eclipse. This eclipse is giving us a chance to reset our lives or build something new. The people who are going to be affected the most by this eclipse, of course, are Capricorn because they're ruled by Saturn, and the eclipse is actually happening in the Capricorn house. Also, if you were born on or around the 4th or 5th of July, this energy is going to be present in your solar return year. You're going to have a year of endings. If you have planets on or around 13 degrees of Capricorn, 13 degrees of Cancer, 13 degrees of Libra, or 13 degrees of Aries, you're going to feel this eclipse very intensely. Now let's look at the eclipse aspects. Pluto and Jupiter are both retrograde at this time, and they came into a conjunction on June 30th. This is going to bring up issues of the pandemic and the economy. Since they're going retrograde, we think we're going to reanalyze and reevaluate the economy, our financial systems, also things like unemployment. Mercury is going retrograde in Cancer and is going to oppose this eclipse. This will represent the opposing views we're going to have on the information that's going to be revealed at this time. However, Mercury is trining Uranus, which is a supporting aspect. Uranus is trining both lights, the moon and the sun at this time. From Taurus to Capricorn and Taurus to Cancer. Neptune is also going retrograde in his home sign of Pisces. He's going to be trining Jupiter and Pluto at this time. This is also another supportive aspect. Just make sure you're sticking to the facts and not using magical thinking at this time. And Mars is transiting his home sign of Aries. This is the area where initiating something or taking action is favored. There is also a separating sextile from Saturn to Mars. The two planets are already in agreement about where you should take action and where you should watch out for your ego or your temper. Overall, this is a positive eclipse. This eclipse can only be truly evaluated by comparing what you have in your personal chart and the aspects that this eclipse will make to them. So if you want to find out the effect of this eclipse on you personally, I suggest you go and book a reading at rachel-mayo.com. Like I mentioned earlier, the house that is supported for initiating action is the Aries house. So find that house in your natal birth chart and go and listen to my video on Mars in Aries transit. In that video, I have listed specific dates that you have to watch out for being triggered or your temper. When I read for the ascendants, I'm only going to focus on the Capricorn house. Aries ascendant or Aries moon. Your ruler Mars is now transiting your sign, so this gives you a lot of power. And Capricorn rules your 10th house, so this is where you're going to feel the effects of this eclipse. The structures that you probably have to let go have to do with the area of your standing in society. Maybe by this time you thought you would have accomplished a few things in your career. It could also be that you've been unhappy at a job for a long time now. This is the time you may be let go, or you may decide to quit. For some people, this could be a situation where they were only married for the status and they don't need that status anymore. This is the time the truth will come out and the relationship will come tumbling down. Also the time that some people could also let go of certain ambitions that they had. Given the current situation with the pandemic, those ambitions might no longer be worth pursuing at this time. Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon. This eclipse is happening in your 9th house. This is the area where you're going to experience culminations, endings, and letting go. If you've been sassed, if you've been in college for a few years now, this is the time that some people may actually graduate. Since the 9th house also rules over religion and our higher ideals, this is the time when some people could break away from the church or change their religion. Some people could also change their higher ideals and belief systems. Or in a negative aspect, some people may get in trouble because of their higher beliefs. This eclipse is aspecting you negatively. This is the time that your ideals or higher beliefs could get you in trouble. Venus, your ruler, is in the sign of Gemini. She's transiting with the North Node. Since this is the direction we all must travel, Venus, your ruler, has some information that you need to look over, some details and fine print that you must go over. It could be something concerning money or the law. Gemini ascendant or Gemini moon. This eclipse is happening in your 8th house. Your ruler Mercury is retrograde in Cancer. Cancer is a sign of the past. Since she's going retrograde, she's most likely bring up past issues of things that you may have done, things that you may need to reevaluate and re-examine before you move on. Your chart is well aspected. This is the time that you could pay off a mortgage. It's also the time that you could get financing for a car or some other type of large purchase. Since this is also the house of secrets, some deep, dark, hidden secrets may be revealed at this time. A lunar eclipse in the 8th house will shine a light on our secrets. They might be revealed at this time. So if there's anything that you need to come clean about, this would be a perfect time to let this go. Intimate relationships are a focus of the 8th house as well. It's very likely that a relationship comes to an end at this time because of whatever is revealed. You are going to feel this energy very intensely because you have the stellium in Capricorn opposing your sign. The 9th house is the committed relationship area. So if your marriage has not been working out for a few years, this is the time when everything is going to come crumbling down. Or this is the time that you may have to revamp some situations in your relationship, if it's possible. If the problems that come up are things which cannot be repaired, or the issues that are no longer serving you, this is the time to just let it go. It's very likely that your partner or yourself asks for a divorce at this time. If your chart is well aspected and it is your karma, this is the time some people will decide, enough of being single, let's get married. Saturn being here can cement the relationship for many years to come. This is a time for both partners to be very truthful and honest with themselves. Is this relationship worth fighting for? Is it worth trying to repair it? Or is it just time to walk away? Leo ascendant or Leo moon. This eclipse is happening in your 6th house. 6th house themes are things like what we do for work, our co-workers, our daily routine, our diet and exercise. If you've been working at a job that no longer fulfills you, or you feel it's not worth the trouble, this is the time that you're going to quit your job. This could be the time that you may be let go. If you've had a lawsuit that was going on for a few years, this is the time that it may be concluded, most likely in your favor. For some people, this would be the time they decide to initiate a lawsuit. If your chart is well aspected, this could be the time that you find a different type of job that is going to stay in your life for many years to come. Others who have been fighting some type of chronic illness, this is the time when things will come to head. You're going to find out whether you're going to win this fight against this disease or not. Virgo ascendant or Virgo moon. This eclipse is happening in your 5th house. This is the area where you're going to have culminations or endings. If you've been putting energy into a creative project for the last few years and it's still just not working out for you, this is the time that you may decide to just let it go. If you've had issues with your children that cannot be solved, that you have tried to solve, that you have tried to resolve in different ways but have not been successful, this is also the time that you're going to let this go. For some people, this is the time that they will decide to end a romantic relationship that has had problems in the past. On the positive side, if you are pregnant, this is the time that you're most likely to give birth. And another positive thing that could happen is that if your children are in high school, they could be graduating at this time. Libra ascendant or Libra moon. This eclipse is happening in your 4th house. The 4th house houses the IC. It's an angle house. An eclipse here is felt very intensely and definitely brings some culminations and endings. If you've been working on building your house or renovating your house and the project has just not come together, this is the time that you're going to decide to either sell your house or just quit on the renovations. If you've had problems with your mother or your family, this is when things are going to come to a head. On the negative side, if your mother has been ill or has been struggling with her health, this is the time when things are going to come to a culmination. Eclipse in the 4th house is also a time when some people decide to sell their house and move houses. The eclipse is going to aspect your sign with a square. This might be a challenging eclipse for you. Scorpio rising or Scorpio moon. This eclipse is happening in your 3rd house. This is the area where you're going to have culminations or endings. Pluto, your core ruler, is conjunct Jupiter at this time. This eclipse is most likely going to be a positive experience for you. If you've had disagreements with your siblings or your neighbors, this is most likely the time when you'll end those disagreements. But if you have some challenging aspect to this eclipse, this is also the time when you could break up the relationships between the two. If you've been having problems with your vehicle, this is the time that you may decide to let that vehicle go and buy a new car. This could also be the time when some people complete some sort of study or learning a new skill. Others could also decide to move away from their neighborhood at this time. Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius moon. This eclipse is happening in your 2nd house. This is the area you're going to feel. This is the area where there will be some endings or culminations. Your ruler Jupiter is in Capricorn in your 2nd house and it's conjunct Pluto. These planets are both retrograde and Jupiter expands whatever it touches. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. This could bring up issues about how you make your money. For some people, a job or some other means of making money could come to an end at this time. Pluto could bring up some financial issue, and your planet Jupiter could expand that issue. Since both planets are retrograde, you may have to re-examine a few things in this house. Perhaps it could also be issues around your self-esteem, or some issues from the past that you've been avoiding. This is your final chance to fix what you can fix, make corrections, or just let go of whatever is no longer serving you. Capricorn Ascendant or Capricorn Moon. This eclipse is happening in your first house. This is where you're going to have endings or culminations. Most of the things I said in the introduction apply to you, Capricorn. I suggest you go back and listen to the whole introduction. The first house is the house of self. Maybe there are some ideas or beliefs that you had about yourself, or some habits that you have to reevaluate or you have to end at this time. If you had been working on something behind the scenes when Saturn was in Sagittarius, this is the time that you may complete whatever it is that you're working on behind the scenes. When crosses the ascendant, you begin a new cycle, a new 29-year cycle, definitely making a new foundation of how you want others to see you in society. If you're working on changing your health or your body, this is probably the time when you may finish those changes. Aquarius Ascendant or Aquarius Moon. Eclipse is happening in your 12th house. This is the area where you're going to feel the endings and culminations. Saturn just transited your sign, so he probably gave you a taste of what it's going to be like when he comes back to this place at the end of the year. It was a very brief stay. Now Saturn is back in your 12th house. An eclipse in a 12th house could be quite uncomfortable. Fortunately, Saturn is your ruler, so he's still going to protect his house. A lunar eclipse in the 12th house could highlight or show you who your hidden enemies are. You could also be your own hidden enemy because of your habits and self-sabotaging tendencies. When Saturn is transiting the 12th house, it is a time when you're made to deal with your past life karmas. So some negative things may resurface at this time. These are karmic things that may be reintroduced from perhaps 7 years ago, 14 years ago, 29 years ago. And since it's the 12th house, it could be things from past lifetimes. Also, when Saturn transits the 12th house, it tends to bring us to foreign lands, living or working around foreign people. This is also the time that you may decide to leave this foreign land and move back to your native country. Pisces Ascendant or Pisces Moon. This eclipse is happening in your 11th house. This is the house where you're going to have the culminations or endings. Capricorn is sextile Pisces. This is a harmonious aspect. So this eclipse might actually be positive for you. Especially since your ruler Neptune is transiting your own sign. Saturn is also back in his own sign of Capricorn. So both rulers are in their own houses and they're in a wide sextile at this time. You will experience this eclipse through your friends, groups, associations, or perhaps your elder sibling. If you've been a member of a group and things have not been working out, this is the time that you may decide to leave the group. In other situations, this is the time that a group itself might crumble because it was built on a weak foundation. If your friendships have been suffering at this time, this could also be the time that you decide to walk away from those friendships. Or if the relationship was with an elder sibling, this is the time when things will come to a culmination. The 11th house also rules over our hopes, dreams, and wishes. This is the time that you may be rewarded for the hard work you did in the 10th house. This is the house of gains. So some people may experience substantial gains at this time. Neptune, your ruling planet, is retrograde at this time. So make sure you're not being delusional about anything that you decide to walk away from at this time. Make sure you check the facts. At the end of this transit, it's very likely that you're going to find yourself in a better group, better friendships that will last you for many years to come. If you enjoy the content in this video, I would appreciate it if you hit like and subscribe at this time. Thank you.